Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a viewer replay, and today I've picked out this one from Jim 1908 of the Spähpanzer RU-251. Now there's kind of a reason why I picked this out. I was looking for a light tank replay anyway, and then I decided on a tier 8 light tank because why not, and then I decided on this thing because I don't think I've shown it before. But also, in the footage that Jingles has been putting up of the meeting that he and a number of other contributors had in Cyprus with various people from Wargaming, one of the things that came up was the role of light tanks these days. And when I first started playing World of Tanks, when I got my T50-2 and even the T50 I held on to for a long time, I loved that thing. I loved playing light tanks, but since that era, the nature of light tanks has changed a lot, and these days the ones that are considered good top tier light tanks are pretty interchangeable with the same tier mediums. I mean, in some cases they have better firepower than the same tier mediums, and that is actually kind of true of the RU. This has got 190 pen with the AP, it's got 250 pen with the heat, and almost uniquely, because the Canonian Jagdpanzer has this gun kind of in theory as well, it has 100mm of pen with the HE, which I don't know if that is actual HE or if it's meant to be HESH, but either way that's quite a lot. So some RU players you'll see driving around with more than the usual number of HE shells, but still that 190 AP penetration, that's better than a lot of the tier 8 mediums get. So there we go, Leopard PTA, tier 9 medium, but it's a Leopard, so it really isn't, he's not going to have any trouble with this. The main difference between them is obviously the Leopard's got a bigger gun, but it's the hit points, because they're both very, very squashy machines with a good view range. And that is one of the points that was made in Cyprus, is that these days light tanks, the high tier light tanks, they're not really truly scouts anymore, except on a couple of maps, but even then, apart from the camo bonus, they really can't otherwise do much that same and higher tier mediums can do. And especially in of course the light tanks with scout matchmaking, you're consistently going to be in higher tier games, although this is possibly decent matchmaking for an RU, but the higher tiers that you're going to see are going to match you on view range, and of course a lot of maps there's no cover or anything to use, and not even just the city maps. There's a lot of the maps had cover removed because of issues with tank destroyers, really. So the whole nature of the light tanks has changed these days, and there's not really a point to playing them, because it used to be back in the day, and I had this experience myself. This was a thing I liked to do. In fact, I was actually a light tank instructor for SGTA for a while, and all my experience isn't really relevant these days, but it was looking for opportunities to get through and kill enemy arty, or it was using bush cover to spot, or supporting heavy tanks. And these days you can still do the spotting on some maps, and you can still do the kind of supporting role, but that's all you're really limited to. And if you get the wrong sort of map for spotting, then you're just left hoping the rest of your team is alright, because it's kind of hard to do much in a light tank. It is basically a squashier, less hit pointy, that's good English, right? Medium tank. At least the decent ones are. I mean, you get, like, the T49 for instance is a complete novelty, and the AMX 1390s are really a holdover from the old era, but of course the 1390, it's all about that burst potential. That's what makes it powerful still, although the gun is hardly reliable. Anyway, on to the match at hand. Let's talk about what's actually happening in front of us right now. Jim has actually come back to support artillery, really. I mean, there's an SU-152 that's just been sat back here at the base also, but he's making a bit of a mistake here. I mean, he's gotten some good hits in already. He's already done 1,500 damage almost. Well, actually just over 1,400 to a tier 9 medium, so that right there is good XP. But he's just sat in the open with this WZ, and he could be using the terrain here, and instead he's just trading hit points for hit points. And fortunately for him, the SU-152 then blaps the WZ, and the WZ is also fairly well regarded, but again it's kind of a stand-in medium tank. That was a lot of health he just traded away for only 2 average hits, really. So that was quite costly. That was not ideal. He also knows that there's possibly a medium coming round from behind here. And this is a little bit risky here. He wants to really be in a position where he can immediately back down and get away. But no, there's the T-34-3, and the guy misses the first time because that thing's terrible on the move. But if he gets another hit in, this could be really very painful. At least the T-54's not with him as well, because then Jim here would be quite dead. And there we go, it's the high roll. He's left with 37 health. So yeah, this has all gone rather badly wrong. It was all right up until that point. It was supporting the north corner, which unfortunately has those tanks have died. But now he's being chased by this T-34-3. However, the ST-1 is coming to his aid, so that's fine. The main bulk of their tanks, this team's tanks, are trying to push 9-0. And there's no artillery, which makes it a bit better. But trying to push over that crest. I mean, they've got an IS-2 hitting from one side, and then there's a couple of tanks from the 0 line. So it's a bit risky. So we'll see what the outcome is of that sooner rather than later, I suspect. But meanwhile, that ST-1 turned up at just the right time. So he's gotten a little bit more damage, and he got his first kill out of that. But so far, this hasn't really been a remarkable game in any way, shape or form. And I was watching this replay thinking, I don't know if I'll use this one. But this is one of those games where you can't really judge what happens in the first half of the game. We can't judge the whole game based on what happens in the first half of the game. And considering he's got 37 health left, there'd better be something pretty good that's about to happen. So there's the T-54 coming up behind him, which is very bad news. I mean, the SU might get a shot, but it's an SU-152 with a derp gun. And oh, okay, the guy misses. He really can't hang around here, so he drops down, which is risky in of itself, tracks himself, and then tracks the T-54, who has already used his repair kit. Yeah, this is the point where I thought, you know what, I might actually use this replay after all. Oh, Mr. T-54 driver, oh, you are just so screwed now, and you don't even know it. And the great thing is, Jim can just sit here and farm this damage now. This guy is just dead. His reload can easily beat the repair speed of this crew. He's got a perfect shot to keep this guy perma-tracked. So this T-54 is just, oh, look at this, just nom 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 nom. This is what, 2 more hits and he's dead. Now he has, unfortunately, I mean this is a downside of getting to shoot your gun a lot, is with this rate of fire, you're gonna get through your ammo relatively quickly, and he's actually now running out of AP shells. Okay, it wasn't just 2 shells. It definitely wasn't just 2 shells. Something else is shooting him from somewhere, so he better drop down out this. But he just killed that guy. 1600 health. He was looking, I mean, that was looking so dicey. He was looking like he was just gonna die, and then he dropped down, tracked himself, and just nommed that T-54. Just ate all of his health. Just farmed him so hard, and suddenly this is actually a pretty good game. 4,000 damage done. Now over on the 9-0 line, unfortunately that push didn't work. They did take down 1 or 2 enemies, or did they even? I don't know, but the T-30 and the WZ-111 and the IS-2, and I think there was a Conqueror there. I think the Conqueror has 4 kills, the T-30's got 3, so I guess they were able to sit relatively hull down and just prevent those enemies from getting any serious traction. So there's a T-54 left alive, but he's a one-shot. Fortunately, the ST-1, however, has got fairly high health left, and I think because he came back to help Jim and, I guess, defend the base. I mean, it probably wasn't solely to help Jim. It was, I'm sure, to try and do something about the base defense, because the SU-152's lost a big chunk of health by this point. It worked out well for Jim, but it also put him well away from the rest of his team. So there's the T-30, and you can see he must have been very, very well hulled down, because he's not lost that much health. But he's now very much in the open, and while Jim's got 1 AP round left, he's just gone on to his heat rounds. Presumably because he thought he was going to be facing the WZ, but lo and behold, the T-30 turned up, so might as well shoot that in the hull as well. I mean, he'd be onto his heat rounds after 1 shot of AP anyway, and the HE, you're not going to pen the front of a T-30 with the HE unless you get quite lucky. But, you know, engine deck shots or whatever, absolutely you can use those HE shells to very nice effect. So it's just, I mean, he's got the view range on the T30. He's now using terrain. He's now doing what he should have done earlier with the WZ-132 rather. He could have avoided taking a lot more damage, but that's just made this all the more exciting, right? So unfortunately that one misses. It would be nice to shave a bit more health off this guy. The defending IS-2 has died, and that's fine, but the WZ has gone back to, well, there we go, it's taken out the T-54. So the WZ was reacting to that situation, and they've now lost that ally. So it's now down to Jim, and the ST-1 and the SU-152. So we've got a Tier 7, a Tier 8, and a Tier 9. And actually, if you can survive through to the late game in a light tank, well, it helps if you've got more health, but still, you can usually... you might not be able to do, you know, the best amount of damage for your tier, but it tends to be more low health enemies running around at that stage. But it definitely helps if you have more hit points. However, talking of hit points, I mean, he's kind of relying on the ST-1 to not be a total idiot. Unfortunately for him, the ST-1 isn't a total idiot, so he can, I mean, even if the guy wasn't playing well, he could still make use of this ST-1 driver to soak up the hits. But the thing is, with a T-30 in play, if they've got the big gun, they could potentially two-shot this guy. But the T-30's also got a very long reload. The WZ, however, has a less long reload, and if either of the WZ or the T-30 decide to shoot him, then he's had it. The SU, meanwhile, is still just sitting back at base. I'm not quite sure what that guy was hoping to accomplish by sitting all the way around there. He's not trying to come round behind anybody or do anything. He's just kind of sitting back there. Now, this is a risk. He knows the T-30's fired, but the WZ might have been able to shoot him in that space. But, however, the WZ hasn't reappeared on this corner, so he's... I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So it's down to... what is that? 1 AP, 2 heat, and 2 HE. So his last 5 rounds of ammo. The WZ, not the WZ, the ST-1, however, I mean, it would be hard to throw this away. It's possible. I mean, if the ST-1 got ammo racked or something like that, it's, you know, unlikely, but it could happen, then that would be a problem, because then it would just be Jim on very low health and the SU-152, who's moved maybe 100 meters from the cap circle in the entire game. And honestly, that SU bot, just very campy, defensive, not great player. It's hard to tell. Could be either. But either way, he's effectively well out of this fight, and he's only just now starting to move towards them. So while Jim here is circling behind, or looking to circle behind the WZ, I will just quickly say, you may have noticed this is a 30 FPS video rather than a 50. I did try recording at 50, but either because of the map or the fact that this is an older game, this is a 9.7 replay, for some reason there was, at times it was recording fine at 50, other times the FPS was dropping rather drastically while I was recording at 50. So I'm not sure, it might just be we've actually had, you know, shock horror, a bit of optimization in the months and months since 9.7, and that the client now runs a little bit more smoothly. Or it might literally be the map. It might be that there's, you know, worse FPS on certain maps than other maps. So World of Tanks videos, we might not be getting consistent FPS videos, but where possible I will be doing FPS, just because I think it looks nicer. And I know a lot of people don't care, but ultimately it doesn't really make a lot of difference. Anyway, he got a nice fire there, he got another hit in, didn't get the kill, but the ST-1 was able to come round, and he was able to make use of that guy pushing to get a nice flanking manoeuvre on that sole remaining enemy. So that was an ace tanker and a high caliber, and the T-54, I mean, we have to give him a little, like, I don't know if it would be quite nice to give him a round of applause or whatever, but that made that game what it was right there. Up until that point, I was not convinced, and then I saw that and thought, okay, this might actually be good. So he did exactly 5,555 damage and got exactly 1,600 base XP. So that's the other reason I picked this. There's very nice, pleasing numbers. And as you can see from that list, the ST-1 actually second place, 3,000 damage. So yeah, they weren't really on the corner with the rest, but actually the fact that they weren't on the corner with the rest was probably a good thing as it turned out, because they were coming back to defend the base, which shows a bit of situational awareness, and they clearly weren't a terrible player. So fortunately for Jim, his allies were able to enable him to have a really cracking game at the end of it, and obviously, like I said, that T-54 did help as well, but if the SD1 driver had been like the SU-152 driver, this might have been a very different outcome. So there we go, the RU-251. I am very far from having this myself, maybe someday, but it's not really a high priority for me. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see what Wargaming comes up with, what ideas they have to try and make light tanks something closer to what they once were, to what they originally wanted the high tier scouts to be. Because at the moment, they're nothing like they used to be. They're basically fragile medium tanks, the best of them anyway. And the worst of them are just, well, ones that you want a free XP past or else tear your hair out over. So hopefully you've enjoyed this game, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.